Ex-prisoners of Reddit, what was the worst thing you saw inside the prison walls? I made a friend early on who was sentenced to life for killing a man that had touched his niece. He'd been locked up for about 5 or 6 years when I'd first met him. Talked to him every day for 3 years, and one day he comes up to me and says he needs to talk to me about something. We do a lap on the back 40 and he tells me his old lady is leaving him and isn't bringing his daughter up to come see him anymore. He's actually crying. I didn't know what I could do to help him, so I let him cry and told him to not let it bother him, maybe she'll come around. We go on about our day and everything seems normal. That night he woke me up. He bunked across the hall, crying. I got up to talk to him and he says he wants to die and that he's glad I'm up because he doesn't want to be alone. I start hitting the panic button for my cell and screaming for a guard, but no one comes and I have to watch while he pries his mirror off of his wall. He put on his linens and blanket like a big robe and he cuts his stomach with his mirror. It was hard to see much because of the blankets and the dark, but I could smell his blood. Then he lit his blankets on fire. The cops got there when the smoke alarm went off, but they were too late. I still have nightmares about it, screaming for him to stop, to just talk it out, but he never does. I've seen a lot of fricked up crap, man, but this was probably the worst. Or, at least, it stuck with me the longest. Damn, I'm sorry dude. That's rough. Thanks. I still dream about him sometimes. Not that specific moment, more often that we are just playing cards, or working out, or playing handball. He was a good friend. We'd give each other food on crappy chow hall days, and one of us was broke, or if one of us was low on deodorant or soap we'd help each other. I taught him how to play chess, and he taught me cribbage and hearts. I saw a guy get in a fight with his cousin over a 50-cent bowl. This escalated more and more until they starting fighting. We all kinda watched out the corner of our eyes. BC it was in the cell while the doors were open. Well, the guy that was mad about the bowl grabbed the dude by the hair and bite a huge hunk of his cousin's eyebrow off, like about half of it. If that wasn't bad enough, me and my cellmate moved into the cell. BC it was further away from the TV. So we are cleaning up the cell and my cellmate goes, holy frick, look at this. He lifts up what I thought was a dead hairy bug. Nope, furry ass eyebrow and skin. Doesn't haunt me, just crazy to think a guy lost half an eyebrow over a freaking 50-cent bowl. This type of thing really makes me wonder why eyebrows Reddit at night. Dad. I remember people kinda turned on each other out of boredom. I mean, you made friends and all, but you had it hanging over you that you were a bad guy, and some people took to being assholes and provoked others seemingly out of boredom. It was an unpleasant situation to be on the other side because you wanted to stay out of trouble too, but at the same time had to stand up for yourself. Maybe not the absolute worst I saw, but something I remember. Kettling was horrible, and I saw it at least 10 times. People would lose an argument, fight, or just get embarrassed by someone and go back to their cell, fill a kettle up with water mixed with sugar, boil it and then throw it in the perpetrator's face. The sugar made the water like napalm, and it would stick to them. I saw 4 people hang themselves. One person slit his wrists and fall through the cell door when it opened in a massive pool of blood. Many people cut themselves with razors as a way to get things they want. And one person in the segregation block smeared crap all over his cell, then cut himself all over and smear the crap into his cuts. Also, people throwing buckets full of piss and crap over others. I saw a pool ball thrown at a guy's face and break his nose and jaw. I was a prison buddy, which is a information giver / counselor. This was all in 3 years, and I'm grateful every day I wake up that I'm not still in there. You'd think by the 3rd time they'd take away the kettles. I spent 8 years in prison in the state of Georgia. There was a guy who made a hustle of hiding illegal cell phones for the Mexican gangs. When a shakedown / search occurred, this man was responsible for the loss of many of those cell phones. He was confronted on the yard and tried to escape by climbing the fence. He got stuck in the razor wire, shredding his forearms, while 7 or 8 Mexican gang members were stabbing him all in the back of his legs and his ass. God, I'm already scared as crap of being stabbed. This is my worst nightmare. I imagine this is one of those fears where exposure therapy isn't recommended. I was a prison guard, briefly, at an all-male prison in Virginia. It didn't suit me. I don't have enough testosterone, I guess. I just didn't like the entire process. I also couldn't get used to walking around on my own with 180 men when I did rounds. The men were loose, just walking around watching. The stares were penetrating. If any of those guys grabbed me, I had no gun, no mace, nothing, and Virginia prisons will never negotiate with prisoners for the sake of a hostage. I'd have been screwed. It messes with your head a bit, but I still did it. Yeah, the food's gross, but the place was clean. The worst day for me was when one of the guards blew his brains out in the watchtower. He was in his early 20s. Sounds crap. You know, you could have done that same job in the UK, Australia, Canada, New Zealand, or like many European countries, and you would probably still be there now. Because in the rest of the world, workers have at least some rights. Man, I'm just upset about your story. This is bullcrap. You guys are supposed to be the world leaders, man. What happened, man? Right now in Aus we're looking for prison guards where I am. Usual pay is like 50-60 grand a year, 6 weeks annual leave. Overtime available. I've been there, and 90% of what they do is drink coffee and talk crap to each other. I have been to the US many times for extended holidays and traveled throughout, and they have the most amazing scenery and natural beauty. We do get a skewed view of the US a lot of the time, but my god, a good proportion of the country seems to be completely backwards. They've been telling themselves for so long that they are the greatest country on earth, but they've forgotten how to be great, if they ever were in the first place. It's a shame, because I don't want to see them flailing like an upturned obese turtle in the midday sun. Not only is their president that, a good 30-50% of the population is too. There was talk about a guy assaulting his own daughter. Some guys made him a cup of morning coffee. Morning coffee is basically taking a kettle, pour cooking oil in it, heat it up, and add a lot of sugar, and then throw it in someone's face. It was very uncomfortable to see and hear. I've noticed from these comments that when people do what you described, they add large amounts of sugar. Why is that? Is it because the concoction becomes like syrup and hard to remove? Yep. Makes the boiling oil stick and burn into the skin, almost. Like Molotov, benzene mixed with styrofoam, or something like that. I worked in the medical department of a large prison in Florida. We had an inmate bite a bigger inmate's nose off the tip. The bigger guy kept asking the kid for sex and the kid had enough. We saw several stabbings, several were life flighted out, but those weren't the most interesting. We had an inmate smoke some bad spice, made out of God knows what. He came to medical out of his mind, and later died, because it caused brain hemorrhaging. One guy got a dislocated patella, and was just sitting patiently as I got his info. I asked if it hurt, and he said yeah. I asked how he was so chill and he replied, because I'm not a bitch. Oh yeah, I forgot the guy that got a stick of deodorant stuck up his ass so far we had to send him out to have it surgically removed. He said he was practicing for sneaking in a cell phone, but there's a 50% chance he was using it as a toy. Inmates were very creative with their homemade toys. I mean, why wouldn't they just use one of the many peens around them? I've never been to prison, but my cousin did, and he came back out all sorts of messed up. He was arrested for drugs. According to him, he spent the majority of his time in solitary confinement. For his safety, he said that his first couple of months there were okay, as far as prison goes. But that one day, for whatever reason, some guy who had been kept separate from the general population was accidentally put with the rest of the prisoners, unsupervised, and that a few prisoners grabbed the guy, and that they stomped on his elbows and legs to break them before they sodomized him with some shivs. My cousin said that those guys did it all in an instant, and that they threatened him if he snitched. My cousin was later interviewed by some of the guards before they took the guys who did this, and so some thought that he had snitched. He says that he didn't, but that didn't matter, because the guards had put him in solitary for safety, and was eventually kept there for months longer, because he wouldn't snitch, so they tried to accuse him of being an accomplice. That would frick me up. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Cos put you in ISO for being a part of it, according to them, while prisoners think you're in ISO to hide from them. I spent a bit of time in both a Cambodian and an American jail. The worst thing I saw in the American system was the cycling of severely mentally ill women to a mental health facility, where they would rubber stamp them as fit for trial, and then back to jail, then back to the mental health facility, another rubber stamp, then back to jail. They were caught endlessly in this loop. I had jail staff taunt me for being transgender. Locked in solitary for months with no reason. A charity got involved and helped me. I was innocent. Generally the other inmates are more kind and humane than the staff, with notable exceptions on both sides. I've been cleaning crew and had to clean up isolation cells covered top to bottom in blood and feces. In Cambodia I saw people suffering seizures while the jail staff looked on curiously but did nothing. I saw rampant corruption, but it was actually in my favor. My friends brought me food and medicine by bribing the guards. I saw hungry women fight over ice. I was innocent but suffered enormously. I'm so happy to be free again. My heart goes out to all the people who have been imprisoned unjustly. Do you mind me asking what happened? My very conservative ex accused me of abusing our children when I filed for 50% custody. I've never been to prison, but my uncle has. And his story was really interesting and kind of disturbing. We live in Mexico, Guadalajara. My uncle has diabetes, and at that time his health was really bad. He had a divorce 12 years ago and her ex-wife and him lost all contact, so she didn't know about his condition. She didn't receive her pension, so she sued him, and by the end of that week he was taken to a prison called Punt Grand. He was there only for 3 days. It was easy to prove that it was impossible to work in that state, but he saw a lot of terrifying stuff there. First of all, prisoners have a hierarchy there. When new prisoners come, there are prisoners with power to judge them and punish them according to their stories on how they got there. Guards know this, but there's a lot of people with power inside the cells. According to my uncle, they were taken to a large room by the guards. When they left, other prisoners came and started questioning them. One of the new prisoners admitted to raping a girl, getting caught by the police, and ending up in prison. The other prisoners got so disgusted that they beat him up and then violated him with a stick. He saw this happen before he was questioned himself. Thankfully nothing bad happened to my uncle when he was there, and he got out of there as soon as we were able to prove that he had diabetes. He told this story just as he got out of there, and when I was 17,